There's a story that took place not too long ago in a small town where a group of students learned one of the most valuable lessons in life. It's the kind of lesson that sticks with you long after the moment has passed. It all started with a boy named Ryan. Ryan wasn't like the other kids. While most students enjoyed running around at recess or hanging out in groups, Ryan often stayed to himself. He was quiet, had his own way of doing things, and spent most of his time reading or working on intricate projects. You see, Ryan had Asperger's, a form of autism that made him see the world a little differently, but to his classmates, all they saw was someone who didn't fit in. Most of the time, they didn't pay much attention to him until one day everything changed. It was the day of the big school science fair, a huge deal for the students. Everyone was talking about it for weeks. The competition was fierce, with students building volcanoes, robots, and all kinds of impressive projects. But in the middle of all that excitement was Ryan. His project? It didn't look like much at first glance. It was a simple wooden contraption, some strings, pulleys, and a small motor. The other students laughed when they saw it, calling it a weird machine, and moved on. No one expected Ryan to win. In fact, some of the students made fun of him, assuming that his project was too simple and that he wouldn't stand a chance against the more flashy exhibits. But Ryan? He stayed calm. He knew something they didn't. As the judges made their rounds looking at the projects, something unexpected happened. They reached Ryan's table and, after a brief explanation from him, their eyes lit up. Ryan's project wasn't just a simple machine. It was a highly efficient device that could generate energy from the smallest movements, something far beyond what any of the other students had created. Ryan had developed a way to turn kinetic energy into electricity with almost no waste. It was a breakthrough idea, practical, innovative, and most importantly, something the judges hadn't seen before. While others focused on making their projects look impressive, Ryan focused on making something that worked in a way most people wouldn't even consider. The laughter stopped. The students who had doubted Ryan now realized just how wrong they were. His project didn't just work, it was groundbreaking. Ryan ended up winning the top prize at the science fair, something that no one except maybe Ryan himself saw coming. But the story doesn't end there. The real lesson came after the fair. You see, one of the students who had mocked Ryan the most, a boy named Chris, had trouble with his own project. He struggled to figure out how to make his robot work properly, and despite all the fancy features, it just wouldn't run smoothly. After seeing Ryan's success, Chris hesitated but eventually approached him for help. He swallowed his pride and asked if Ryan could take a look at his robot. And here's where the magic happens. Ryan could have easily said no. After all, Chris had been one of the ones laughing at him. But instead, Ryan nodded, smiled, and spent the rest of the afternoon helping Chris fix the problem. He didn't hold a grudge or say, "I told you so." Instead, he showed Chris exactly what was wrong and how to make it work. In the end, Chris learned more than just how to fix his robot. He learned that intelligence comes in many forms, and that just because someone seems different doesn't mean they aren't capable of extraordinary things. From that day on, Ryan wasn't just the quiet kid who sat alone. He became known as the smartest kid in class, not because of his science fair win, but because of his ability to think outside the box and his willingness to help others. And Chris? He became one of Ryan's biggest supporters, learning that sometimes the people we least expect have the most to offer. So, what can we take away from this story? It's simple. Never underestimate someone just because they're different. People like Ryan often have talents and abilities that aren't immediately visible, but when given a chance, they can achieve amazing things. And just as importantly, it's never too late to recognize and appreciate the strengths of others, even if you didn't see them at first. Let's remember that it's not our differences that make us weaker. It's how we treat those differences that determines whether we succeed together or not. So the next time you meet someone who seems a little different, don't dismiss them. You might just be overlooking someone who could change the world. Thanks for listening, and if you found this story meaningful, make sure to share it with someone who could use this reminder. Let's keep celebrating what makes us unique.